Today's also appearance day of Nrisimha Krishna Goswami Maharaj. So, Atu Krishna Bhajan Pandit, is it? Yes. So I will speak first about Krishna Goswami. Krishna Goswami, of course, he was a dear servant of Srila Prabhupada. He came to the Krishna consciousness movement in San Francisco in the 1960s. And he joined there with another devotee who is also well known, Vishnu Jana Swami. Vishnu Jana Swami, he was the first friend of Srila Krishna Goswami. They both joined together and they became devotees there in San Francisco. And then it was Srila Krishna who organized the Sankirtan in San Francisco. He got all the devotees dressed in the same kind of color, and all the ladies had saris the same color, and the devotees, all the men, they were all dressed in the same kind of clothes. And they would go out on Sankirtan, and Prabhupada liked it because it's very nice to see the devotees very well organized. Because in the beginning of our movement, Prabhupada didn't know he didn't know how we could support everything, how to maintain anything. We had no congregation. Nowadays, you have congregation, you give donations. But in those days, it was a very new movement, and they were all Westerners. There were no Indians there to support. So Srila Krishna, he got the idea that they could distribute books and they could request donations. So Prabhupada liked that. He thought that's a good thing. Because before, Prabhupada said everybody should get jobs. And so they got jobs, but then Prabhupada didn't like where they got the job. Somebody was working in a cigarette factory, different things like this, So Prabhupada said, no, you cannot work in the cigarette factory, that is not good for devotees. So then Srila Krishna found that he got the idea that he could go out on Sankirtan and he could offer books to people and request donations. And in this way they were able to collect some donations and support the temple. So Prabhupada was very happy with this and he encouraged them to do like that. And this was how the Sankirtan began in the Western countries, because in the Western countries in 1960s and 70s there were no Indians to support. And we were very new. So how to get money? The devotees would distribute back to Bhajan magazine and whatever book was printed. Prabhupada had come to the West. He had brought with him only 3 volumes of Bhagavatam printed in India. So that was very limited. Then somehow they were lucky, they were able to get Bhagavad Gita printed by Macmillan, but that was an abridged version, there's no Sanskrit. And then later on, they printed the fuller version with Sanskrit, and then later on we got to print it ourselves for the BVV. So it all took time, it took years before we were able to get all these books printed, BVV printing. And people were joining the movement and they were staying in the temple and we were having programs and deity worship was being introduced. That all cost money, so where to get funds? And at the same time Prabhupada was expanding. So Prabhupada organized to take people to India because there was nothing in India. And Prabhupada wanted to begin Krishna consciousness in India. So he brought some of the devotees with him from the West. And they all came to India together with Prabhupada. And Prabhupada would take them around to do programs and do Sankirtan in the streets. But then also problem came, how to support, how to get funds. Because Prabhupada had no money. He wasn't a rich man. He had no money. He had only disciples he had were all Westerners, young people from the West. So how to get money? So then Prabhupada got the idea, life membership program, and they began that. Dr. Krishna Maharaj, he went to India with Prabhupada, and Prabhupada used to ask him to do things. He would ask him, I want you to arrange for the distribution of all these books. Prabhupada had gone to Japan, and in Japan he went to the printing company, and he got the printing company to print many Bhakti Godhead magazines and also Krishna books. So Prabhupada then, he told to Krishna Maharaj, he said, I want you to arrange to distribute them. That was a big responsibility to organize, to distribute all these books. And they had to be paid for. You couldn't just give the books out free. You have to get the money for them, to pay for them. You have to make a profit. So, Krishna Maharaj had to do these things. He had to organize collection of funds, and he had to organize the temples. The devotees were very young, passionate, immature. So many troubles, young people, men and women together. So it was not an easy job, and Prabhupada depended on people like Tamal Krishna Maharaj to organize these things. So Prabhupada brought Tamal Krishna Maharaj to India, and he was traveling in India also, organizing everything. But then Tamal Krishna wanted to go back to America. He said his health was not very good in India in the 1970s. Health was not good. He wanted to go back to America and to preach there. So Prabhupada let him go. And when he went back, then he began the Radha Damodar Sankirtan party. He went back to America and he was with his old friend Vishnu Jana Swami, and together they had a bus with deities, Radha Damodar deities on the bus, and they would travel. And they would go to the colleges, the universities in America, and they would do the program. And they would do kirtan, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj would give lecture, and then they would get people to join. And they get the young men to leave the college and to come and join, come full-time devotees. And they would all travel, they all gave up their studies and they came and traveled to the Radha Damodar party. They got more buses and they had a big fleet of buses, they had many devotees, all young men, all traveling every day, going out, preaching, distributing books. And they would, whatever money they collected, they would give it to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada would use it to develop like Vrindavan, to build the temple of Vrindavan, and then Mayapur also, to buy land in Mayapur, and to begin the construction in Mayapur, and then also Mumbai, the temple in Juhu. So these were different projects which Prabhupada had, 3 places. The Juhu temple in Mumbai, and then Mayapur temple, and then also Vrindavan temple. And of course they had also center in Calcutta. We had that was a rented house initially. Now we own it. But initially it was rented. In Delhi also, we lived in a very small house, rented house. Now they have many temples in Delhi. Nice temple, big temple. But in the beginning, it was very difficult. Very difficult. India, 1960s, 1970s. India was not a rich country. And devotees were not rich. and devotees come to India and somehow they're preaching and distributing books, and it took time to get support. Dr. Krishna Goswami, he was secretary to Prabhupada, Prabhupada's secretary, and in the final 2 years when Prabhupada was in good health, Tamal Krishna Goswami left everything and he came and stayed with Prabhupada, and he went with Prabhupada around. Wherever Prabhupada went, he went with him and he would serve Prabhupada. So Prabhupada trusted him a lot, he gave him a lot of responsibility. And he also requested him, at one point he requested him to go to China. He wanted him to go there to China and preach there. He said it would be good for him to be there in China. So at that time China was not open, but Prabhupada told Tamal Krishna, he said, even you cannot go. He said, you send the books, and the books will make the preaching field. So Tamal Krishna came to Hong Kong, and he began to organize a book production in Chinese, and he arranged to send books to China. And like that, gradually we started to go to China and make devotees in China. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj did many important services for Srila Prabhupada. After Prabhupada departed, he also published a book, The Light of the Bhagavad. Light of the Bhagavad. It had been written by Prabhupada, but Prabhupada was never able to publish it. But Tamal Krishna Goswami, he got an artist to paint the pictures, to do the illustrations, and then he printed the book. Very nice book, very important book, describing the philosophy, Light of the Bhagavad, from Srimad Bhagavatam 10.2. The chapter is entitled Description of Offering. And so that was one of the many things he did for Prabhupada. He also tried to get into academic preaching, and he went to college and he studied in college in America, and then he went to England and he studied to do PhD there in England. But he was not able to complete that, and it happened that he come to Mayapur in the year 2002, and he was attending the GBC meeting, and after the GBC meeting, he was in the car with devotees. They were in one vehicle, and they were going to Calcutta with the idea to go to Vrindavan. But on the way, the car met with an accident, and the car overturned, and at that time he left the body. So that was in the year 2002. And so when he left the body, the devotees were not very sure where his samadhi should be. But then when they looked in his will, it was a surprise to everyone, because in his will he had he said that my samadhi should be in Govardhan, because he had a house, he purchased the Bhaktivedanta ashram there in Govardhan. He said, my samadhi should be Govardhan, but if I leave the body in Mayapur, then my samadhi can be in Mayapur. And so that's why his samadhi is in Mayapur. And he has the Pushpa Samadhi at Govardhan. So today is his appearance day. Tamal Krishna Goswami traveled many parts of the world. He was very influential in preaching. There's many disciples in Australia and Fiji, as well as America. He was generally based in Dallas, Texas, and Houston, Texas, and had many disciples there still. But he was well known and respected all over the world. He was a loyal Prabhupada follower, and he did his best to spread Krishna consciousness movement around the world. So we're remembering him on this day. Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. So now we'll invite the Krishna Prabhu to tell us about Vaikreshwara Pandit. but it was only seen by Haridas Thakur. Only Haridas Thakur could actually perceive the presence of Lord Chaitanya. It's called Avirbhav expansion. Actually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was maybe at that time he was in Jagannath Puri, but he appeared to Haridas Thakur. Just like at Panihati, when they had the Panihati festival, you know, Raghunath Das arranged a big feast, and Lord Nityananda was there, and they put a plate for Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya was not there, but some of the devotees, they could see Lord Chaitanya had actually appeared. So by Avirbhav expansion, he appears. Which, you know, that means he's not seen by everyone, but very pure folks, they can perceive. It said Lord Chaitanya would appear, he would regularly go to the home of Raghava Pandit. Raghava Pandit had a home in Panihati. Lord Chaitanya would regularly go there, and he would regularly appear wherever Lord Nityananda danced in Kirtan. At that time also Lord Chaitanya would come and dance in the Kirtan. And Lord Chaitanya would go to Mother Sachi's home every day to eat prasadam. And he told his mother that I'm coming there every day and I'm enjoying the lunch there every day. So you don't have to worry, I'm coming there to eat your offerings. So those were some places where Lord Chaitanya was appearing regularly. So he came also here to Haridas Thakur by his presence.
Question. You mentioning that when Devanand Pandit, he offended Shiva Thakur. So after that, when he was serving Vakreshwar Pandit, he got the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. But we hear that when some devotee offends a particular devotee, he keeps forgiveness only from that devotee.
Yes. Well, Prabhu is asking about Devananda Pandit, that Devananda Pandit suffered, he didn't get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya because he allowed his students to offend Srivas Thakur. Srivas Thakur had gone to Devananda Pandit's college. Devananda Pandit had a school, he was teaching the Bhagavatam. So Srivas Pandit wanted to hear Srimad Bhagavatam one day, and he went there to Devananda Pandit's place. But he knew Devananda Pandit wasn't really very much of a devotee. He would read Srimad Bhagavatam, he would teach it, but he would not give the authorized commentary according to the Vaishnava Sampradaya. But still Srimad Pandit wanted to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. But when he heard Srimad Bhagavatam, Srivas Pandit felt some ecstasy. And so the students, Devananda Pandit's students, thought he's disturbing us. And so they dragged him out. They picked him up and dragged him out of the room. So that was an offense to Srivas Pandit. And because of that offense, Devananda Pandit suffered. Because the teacher suffers for the reactions of the students. If the students don't do properly, then the teacher has to take karma also. Just like if, Prabhupada would often be worried that we would do something wrong, then he will have to take reactions. Prabhupada said because he accepted unqualified disciples, he got reactions, bad health. So Devananda Pandit was guilty for not taking care of Srivas Pandit. He did not properly guide his students how to respect the pure devotee. So Devananda Pandit wanted to get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, but Lord Chaitanya refused him. He said, no, you're an offender of pure devotees. So he would not, Lord Chaitanya at first would not give any mercy to Devananda Pandit. But then we heard from Atul Krishna Prabhu that Devananda Pandit went, and when Vakreshwara Pandit was dancing, he kept the people away so they didn't disturb him, because when they would dance, many people would gather around him and they would disturb his dancing, so that he would keep them back, give him room, let him dance. If people get too close to you, you can't dance. So Devananda Pandit kept them back. They give Vakrishvara Pandit room to dance. So Lord Chaitanya was very pleased when he saw Devananda Pandit rendering service to Vakrishvara Pandit. Because it said, when you serve a devotee, it opens the doors to liberation. Mahat sevam dvara mahur mukti. So Prabhu is asking the question, he said, so how does he get forgiven for his offenses? Because he did not do anything. He didn't go to Srivas Pandit. It was Srivas Pandit he offended. So he has to go to Srivas Pandit to get forgiven from his offense. So when Lord Chaitanya saw that Devananda Pandit was serving Vakrishvara Pandit like that, then Lord Chaitanya told him, he said, now you go to Srivas Pandit and you get forgiven. You tell him, you beg forgiveness for your offense to him. And you go and fall at his feet and ask Srivas Pandit to forgive you. And then I will teach you Srimad Bhagavatam. So Devananda Pandit had to go to Srivas Pandit and beg forgiveness. And in this way he got forgiven. And Lord Chaitanya then taught him Srimad Bhagavatam. And he told him, don't ever think you understood Srimad Bhagavatam. Yes, please.
My question is, Patraj Khan, you was born in a Muslim family. How did God access to Krishna Bhakti?
He was not born in a Muslim family. That title was given to him, just like Rupa and Sanatan. They were not born in Muslim families. They were given Muslim names. Dabirkas Sakaramal. So that title Khan was given to him by the ruler who was Muslim, but he wasn't Muslim. But he was given that name, the title. Haridas Thakur. So what?
How did God access to Krishna Bhakti?
How did Haridas Thakur get access to Krishna Bhakti? By the mercy of Advaita Acharya. Advaita Acharya. Haridas Thakur was born in a family of Mohammedans who were taking care of cows. But they were not killing any cows. They were only taking care of cows. So he was brought up in that kind of family. And then when he was very young, he left and he got the association of Advaita Acharya. From Advaita Acharya, he accepted the Holy Name. Yes. Any other questions? How long is the prasadam going to be?
I think I mean,
Hare Krishna,